Okay, so I should probably just clarify now that before this video goes any further, I do like Star Wars, okay? I like the original trilogy, I like the prequel trilogy, I also like the Disney Plus exclusive stuff like The Mandalorian and The Bad Batch, which have, you know, been performing extremely well, according to critics, and myself. And I did kind of like Rebels. I never watched it to the extent that I watched something like The Mandalorian or The Clone Wars, so honestly, it was alright at best. At least it wasn't terrible. However, I think that every single Star Wars fan, be it the veterans, the newbies, all of them can agree that out of every single piece of Star Wars media, the sequel trilogy has to suck the most. And hey, that could have been caused by any number of different things that were going on within the studios of Lucasfilm. It could have been caused by lack of communication from the directors of the sequel trilogy. It also could have been because the directors wanted to put the main character Rey on such a high fucking pedestal that they basically made all of the other characters fucking useless. Or it could have been because JJ literally admitted that, guess what, we had no fucking time to plan the sequel trilogy and we had no plan going ahead. Lovely. Or it could be a mix of all three, which is the most likely situation for this shit show of a trilogy. Now, if you couldn't already tell, today we're going to be discussing why each and every one of the sequel Star Wars trilogy movies are terrible in their own little unique way, down to plot, management, and character development. Basically everything. Now, it's only right that we start this video off by bitching about the first of the three movies in the sequel trilogy, The Force Awakens. Now, believe it or not, folks, this is the best movie in the entire fucking sequel trilogy. It only goes down from here. Now, I shit you not when I say this. This movie is literally just a copy-paste of the first fucking movie, A New Hope, but made bigger with more gun. Like, dude, no one gives a fucking shit that you've made the Death Star, but the ability to give the entire solar system a fucking run for its money. Dude, it's the same fucking premise when you've gotten to that scope of destruction. No one cares. And not only is the entire plot for The Force Awakens basically wasted and just completely lazed out, like, oh hey, let's just repaste the fucking plot for episode 4 in here. Rey's character is also the laziest character development I think I've ever seen in a movie, and that is saying a lot considering I've seen some pretty bad shit. I would just like to remind you folks that at the beginning of this movie, Rey had no idea what the Force was and just believed that the Jedi were a myth. At the end of it, she's able to somehow fucking beat Kylo Ren, a Force user who has had decades of training from both Snoke and Luke Skywalker, so, you know, that's a thing. Okay, so if anyone's seen the last episode of The Mandalorian, also, spoilers for The Mandalorian, I mean, I guess not really. If you haven't watched that, that's your fucking fault. But yeah, at the last episode of The Mandalorian, Luke happens to say this single sentence.
He is strong with the Force, but talent without training is nothing.
Like, I'm sorry if I'm wrong here, but last time I checked, that was how the Force worked for, like, the entire franchise. But of course, we live in a new day and age. A day and age where women are to be put on this fucking pedestal above men because that's what equality means. That's what feminism means. I was led to believe that feminism and equality meant everyone is equal, but apparently not. Again, people, remember, this is the best movie in this entire trilogy. It literally goes down from here, and that's what disappoints me the most. The movie, which was lazily cobbled together from the foundations of A New Hope, is the best movie in this entire trilogy. Now, I'm all for movies reusing certain plots from other movies. That's completely fine. Movies do it all the time, and hey, they turn out great. And if it's done subtly in the same franchise, then it can also turn out really great. Only problem is, this isn't the first time Star Wars has used the same fucking plot again. They've done this for, what, hang on. 3 times now. This is the 3rd time they've reused this plot. So, ignoring the fact that Rey literally learns what a Jedi mind trick is despite having no knowledge of it even existing, ignoring the fact that R2 for some reason has the remainder of the map that leads to Luke Skywalker even though it was stated that he probably didn't, even after all of that, if you're able to overlook all of that shit, maybe I can see why you might like this movie. I honestly don't really have that much of a problem with it. I don't like it, but I don't hate it. But remember, boys, girls, and those of unspecified gender such as myself, we're just getting started. It's time to move on to part 2, everyone, and that one's called... Yep, that's what I'm calling this part. So, attempting to describe why this movie is terrible is like attempting to describe why a car is broken when all of its fucking parts have been smashed by a sledgehammer. Yes, it's that bad. When you suddenly decide to make a massive mystery like Rey's parents non-existent, or you decide to give Leia of all people force powers when there has been no indication in any of the movies that she had force powers to begin with, don't be surprised when people begin to have a few fucking problems. People also happen to have problems with how Luke was portrayed in this movie, which isn't a surprise considering they basically ruined his fucking character here. Even Mark Hamill himself said that he didn't like how Luke was portrayed in this movie, so that alone should have said something. Like, seriously, when the guy who plays Luke Skywalker and knows how Luke Skywalker should act says that there's a problem with Luke Skywalker, you've kind of fucked up. Luke's character was so completely screwed over that this is exactly what he said about the Jedi in this film.
The Jedi are romanticized, deified. But if you strip away the myth and look at their deeds, the legacy of the Jedi is failure, hypocrisy, hubris.
That's not true.
At the height of their powers, they allowed Darth Sidious to rise, create the Empire, and wipe them out. It was a Jedi Master who was responsible for the training and creation of Darth Vader.
I think anyone and everyone with a brain can agree that this is something that Luke would not have actually said. Luke's entire character in the original trilogy was seeing the good in everyone and always finding a way to push on. And yet in this movie he's just kind of given up and has relegated himself onto some fucking island in the middle of buttfuck nowhere. So yeah, I can see why people were just a little bit pissed off. Just a little bit though. However, the one thing that I think pushed so many people over the edge, myself included, was this. The mere existence of this scene ruins the entire fucking Star Wars canon because it makes you question, why didn't anyone just do this before? Words cannot express how broken the Star Wars community was after that fucking scene. As you can probably tell from the tone of my voice, I am beginning to lose all sense of rationality here, and I am running on fumes. So, we only have one more movie to cover, and... alright. The worst one of the lot. Oh boy, if you thought the last two were bad, you ain't seen nothing yet. So, not even 30 seconds into the movie, and we're already being told by the text crawling shit at the beginning of every Star Wars movie that, hey, guess what? Palpatine's back. Fan-fucking-tastic. Way to make the achievements of the other characters from all the other movies completely fucking pointless, you assholes. The movie also introduces these new MacGuffins known as Sith Wayfinders, something which you only would have known existed if you had read the comics, so no one knew they existed because no one read the comics. Also, fun fact, Snoke is a clone of Palpatine. The movie never touches on this ever again. I kid you not when I say this, everyone was wondering who Snoke was, where he came from, what is his backstory, and our explanation was 2 seconds of a Bapta tank. Lovely stuff, you know. As for the final order, well, dear God, there is so much I have to say about that. For starters, this is basically the same problem we had with Starkiller Base. Introducing a bunch of planet-busting Star Destroyers is not a way to raise the stakes. It would have been just as effective if we had Starkiller Base. I mean, for fuck's sake, if Palpatine had the power to build all of these fucking ships in the 30 years he was on Exegol with minimal resources, Why the fuck didn't he just build all of these ships when the Empire was in its prime to just subjugate the galaxy for all of eternity? And for anyone who wants me to mention the fact that the ships have to have a nav tower in order to navigate outside of Exegol, even though there are ships perfectly capable of leaving a planet's atmosphere without a nav tower, I know, okay? I know. Look, it's stupid. We all know it's fucking stupid. Yes, the entire situation with Palpatine is stupid. Yes, it's fucking stupid that he came back via cloning. Yes, the Final Order is so unnecessary. Yes, it doesn't make sense. I know that. Nothing in this movie makes sense. If you set me down and you tried to get me to explain to someone in detail why this movie is terrible, I would be here until the end of fucking time, okay? There is so much wrong with this movie. I mean, where would I even start? We could start at the fact that Palpatine was never referenced to be alive at all in any of the other movies in the sequel trilogy. We could talk about how it is illogical on how he would have been able to build thousands of planet-destroying Star Destroyers in the 30 years of sole isolation that he had from the rest of the galaxy. Or we could talk about the big fat MacGuffin in the room, Rey is a fucking Palpatine. And yeah, while there are books that go into heavily more detail on how she's a Palpatine, she's essentially Palpatine's granddaughter. Now don't get me wrong, this reveal would have been cool if it had been built up and referenced. However, this shit just comes out of fucking nowhere. Kylo's just like, oh yeah, by the way, you're a Palpatine. Not only is it never referenced that Rey is a Palpatine at any point in the series, it's also just casually brought up like, oh yeah, by the way, you're the granddaughter of the most powerful and dangerous Sith Lord in existence. So, what caused this and how does one fix? Well, one of the main reasons why the sequels backfired was the lack of communication between JJ and Rian. Point being, JJ wanted the sequels to go one way, and Rian wanted them to go to another. The result was a trilogy of movies which had all probably been better off if they weren't connected to each other at all and had just been their own separate movies. The solution? Just fucking talk to each other, you dumbasses. I think it goes without saying that if there was proper communication and cooperation between Rian and JJ, the sequels would have turned out far better than they actually did. The two of them would have been able to discuss what they wanted the sequel trilogy to actually turn out as, and they both probably could have ended up creating something together which would have resembled something that they both wanted. And hey, maybe if they had known that sometimes more is less, maybe we would have gotten something better than Starkiller Base and the Final Order. However, at the end of the day, we can safely assume, that none of this would have ever happened anyway. Because guess what? At the end of the day, these fucking sequels were a cash grab. Disney only bought the rights to Star Wars so that they could make money off of a new sequel trilogy, and that was it. And look, yeah, I do love the fact that things like The Bad Batch and The Mandalorian exist, as well as Season 7 of Clone Wars, okay? But let's be real here, all of those could have existed without the sequel trilogy. In fact, the ending of all of those shows is honestly bittersweet, because at the end, we all know exactly what they're going to lead up to. Rey and her friends fucking over the franchise. Oh, you like the ending of Mandalorian? Oh, that's okay and all, but just remember, Rey still exists, and that still happens, so no matter what your opinion is on Mandalorian, you can't deny the fact that Rey is going to exist, and everything that happens in that show is basically going to be fucking pointless. Just remember, folks, that no matter how much you like Star Wars, always remember, the sequels are inescapable. This has been Michael BK007, and I'm signing out. Until next time.